Assalamu alaikum. A very good day to all of you. Today, our group is diving into a critical challenge within global trade, that is the South Asian Container Imbalance Program. So myself, Rabit Hassan Bhuiya, IT10, will present you the introduction part of our today's presentation. To give you some perspective, the entire global maritime trade system relies on the smooth and balanced circulation of shipping containers. However, in South Asia, specifically across India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, this balance is broken. We are seeing a persistent asymmetry where the number of full containers leaving the region for exports doesn't match what's coming back in. The core problem we are addressing today is that this imbalance forces shipping lines to spend massive amounts of money just to move the empty boxes where they are needed. This isn't just a logistical headache, it's also an economic burden. These costs are passed down to local businesses through higher freight rates, making South Asian goods less competitive globally. On top of that, the sudden shocks like the Red Sea crisis have shown us how easily this fragile system can be crippled, leading to immediate shortage and delays. The objective of our report is to move beyond just identifying the problem. We are here to investigate the why, looking at everything from structural trade gaps to domestic bottlenecks, like the poor hinterland connectivity or the custom delays that traps the containers in inland. Our scope will cover a comprehensive range of solutions, including national manufacturing policies, digital exchange platforms to track the container availability, and even if the feasibility of foldable containers. Our goal is to present a roadmap that doesn't just fix the current shortage, but builds a resilient sovereign supply chain for the future of South Asia. Let's move to our next presenter. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mr. Jainova. I am here presenting to you the background and situation analysis of this case study. So today I'm addressing a critical supply chain challenge costing the global shipping industry over 20 billion USD annually. The container imbalance problem in South Asia is simple but severe. We export far more containers than we import, creating chronic shortages for our exporters. South Asia handled 45 million TEUs in 2023. Our export to import ratio was 1.4 to 1. Globally, 20 to 25% of container movements are empty repositioning, costing 20 billion yearly. This inefficiency directly impacts our competitiveness. Let's explore the root causes and impacts. Three major factors drive this problem. First, structural trade imbalance. Empty container movements increased 20% between 2019 and 2023. During peak seasons, rentals rates spiked 200 to 300%, and exporters wait 2 to 4 weeks for equipment. Secondly, infrastructure deficiencies. Our port turnaround averages 2 to 4 days versus half a day in Singapore. Rail connectivity is only 15 to 20% compared to 40 to 50% in efficient system. Custom clearance take 5 to 7 days versus 24 to 48 hours elsewhere. Third, geopolitical vulnerabilities. The Red Sea crisis but transits by 75%, adding 10 to 14 days per voyage. Freight rates are charged 5 times from 1,148 to over $4,000 per container. Now, the regional context. South Asia. South Asia represents 1.9 billion people and 4.5 trillion US dollar in GDP. Our major ports like JNPT in Chennai, Karachi, Chittagong, and Colombo are critical gateways. We export textiles, pharmaceuticals, IT services, and auto components, while importing crude oil, machinery, and electronics. This mismatch creates our persistent container deficit. Our SWOT analysis reveals the full picture, where the strengths, strong manufacturing base, strategic location, and competitive cost, and the weakness is chronic shortages, poor port efficiency, limited rail and 15 to 20%, and we produce less than 5% of global container supply. Where the opportunities are digital integration, regional cooperation through SAARC and BIMSTEC and other infrastructure investment. The threats, geopolitical disruptions, shipping consolidation controlling 80% of capacity, and rising carbon costs adding 50 to 100 USD per TEUs. Now, the key takeaways and path forward. This multidimensional problem adds 15 to 30% in freight surcharges, undermining our global competitiveness. The Red Sea crisis, disrupting 30% of global container trade, showed how fragile our system is. We need action on four fronts: infrastructure investment, policy reform, technology innovation, and regional cooperation, where the infrastructure investment modernize ports and rail connectivity. Policy reform works for streamlined customs for days to hours. The technology innovation helps the digital tracking for real-time visibility. And last, regional cooperation, which coordinate solutions through SAARC and BIMSTEC. This affects every South Asian exporter. The solutions are within reach. They require investment, coordination, and political will. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Abdullah Ahmed. Today I am presenting evaluation of the case, problem identification and the analysis of the container imbalance problem in South Asia. This section identifies the key problems, analyze their causes, evidence and consequences, and applies root causes analysis and theoretical frameworks as like Porter's value chain, fishbone, and five whys, with support from academic and industry sources. I have found it around three key problems. Among them, the first problem is trade-driven empty container shortage. There have so many causes behind this problem. The first one is high import values, slow customs clearance, limited yard capacity, shortage of lighter vessels. The evidence is the yard occupancy increased from 30,000 to 40,000 TEUs. Yard capacity exists by 11%. The consequences behind these are vessels waiting time up to 9 days, higher damage and port charges, supply chain disruption. And the second key problem is the port and air congestion. The causes behind of these problems, the first one is export-oriented trade structure. Mm, we all know that Bangladesh is the highly export for the RMG or ready-made garments. The second one is fewer containers returned on inbound legs. Shipping lines prioritize laden cargo. Transshipment congestion of geopolitical disruption. The evidence behind this, the accurate shortage of 40 feet container at Chattogram. Export delivery delays up to 11 days. The consequence is the export delays and higher logistics costs. reduce international competitiveness. And the third and last key problem is insufficient empty container repositioning. The causes behind this: no regional coordination or pooling, poor demand forecasting, limited dry ports and inland connectivity, seasonal trade fluctuation. The evidence are persistent global empty container imbalance, misalignment of inbound and outbound cycles. The consequences are the higher freight and leasing cost, operational inefficiency, increased carbon emission. Now I am covering the theoretical analysis, for this I have covered the Porter's value chain applied to container logistics. Using Porter's value chain, we can see how container imbalance adversely affect the key activities. Here, there have the four component I have covered. The first one is inbound logistics, operation outbound logistics, and the last one is support activities. For those the component, there have so many impact of container imbalance and the competitiveness consequence. The first one, inbound logistics, the impacts among the impacts, there have the delays in unloading and yard congestion, and the consequence is higher cost and slower throughput. For the operation, insufficient container handling is the impact of container imbalance, and the consequence is the reduced productivity and reliability. For the outbound logistics, the impact of container imbalance is the export delays due to shortage of the empty container, and the competitiveness in consequence is the lost export opportunity and higher freight. The last one is support activities. Weak governance and the tech adaptation is the impact, and the consequence is higher indirect cost and lower efficiency. Now, the root causes analysis. I have covered the fishbone method. Here is the fishbone diagram for the container imbalance problem in South Asia. I have covered the container imbalance problem can be broken down into these root categories. I have covered the four categories. The first one is policy and trade patterns, and the second one is operational and infrastructure, and the third one coordination and information, and the last one is external disruption. In the sector of trade and policy patterns, the asymmetric trade flows, shipping line prioritize trade seasonality are there. And in the operational infrastructure segment, yard space limitation, lack of dry ports, feeder and lighter vessels shortage are there. And the coordination and information sector, the poor forecasting, lack of shared data system, lack of so many fragmented efforts, no regional pooling are there. And the last one is external disruption. The holidays and strikes, global disruption, the work stoppage for no causes or any kind of strikes are there. Now, the five question example behind the question, five wise example behind the question, that is, why are export containers delayed? The first causes is there are insufficient empty containers are export loading. The next one is empties are tied up in import airs and not returned. The third one is port clearance is slow and air capacity is insufficient. The fourth one is infrastructure and intermodal capacity are limited, and the last one is strategic planning and investment in dry port and inland facilities are lacking. This trace shows that infrastructure and policy constraints are root causes beyond surface operational symptoms. So I have already covered my the segment, and thank you all. And the next part is covered by my colleagues. And till then, thank you.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Good day to all of you, and thanks to my friends for explaining previous part of this case study. Myself Robin Khan. I am going to describe alternative solution of this case study, which is about the container imbalance problem in South Asia. As we know, South Asia container imbalance problem requires a creative, non-traditional solution alongside conventional logistics and policy innovation. The most encouraging alternatives are collapsible or foldable containers, shipper-owned containers, regional container sharing agreement, and leasing of short-term containers. Collapsible or foldable containers. Collapsible containers are specially engineered shipping containers that can be folded down to a fraction of their original size when empty, typically reducing volume by 60 to 75%. A standard 40-foot containers can be folded into a flat pack configuration. 4 or 5 folded containers can be stacked in the space of one empty standard container. Now if we look into the benefits for these collapsible or foldable containers, like significant reduction in empty repositioning cost, lowered port congestion, environmental sustainability, improved operational flexibility. Also, we will face few challenges for collapsible or foldable containers, like very high upfront manufacturing cost, complexity in maintenance, no widespread standardization. Now if we look into the shipper-owned containers, the shipper-owned containers are containers owned directly by exporter or importers rather than leased from shipping lines. Shipper-owned containers can be moved on any vessel, providing flexibility and bargaining power. They reduce the burden on shipping lines to reposition empty boxes. Now if we look into the benefits for the shipper-owned containers, like reduced dependency on carrier-owned equipment, lower overall logistics cost for frequent exporters, improved container turnaround time, mitigation during geopolitical disruptions. If we look into the challenges for these shipper-owned containers, like high upfront purchase cost, maintenance, inspection, and certification responsibilities fall on shippers, limited shortage infrastructure for shipper-owned containers at many South Asian inland depots. Now, if we look into the regional container sharing agreement, it is a fact between India, Bangladesh, Pakistan and Sri Lanka to share surplus units. It reduces cross-border container shortage. And at last, leasing of short-term containers. It's all about seasonal leasing arrangement, reduce dependency on shipping lines during peak exporter months. And this is the all about the alternative solution for this case study on the container imbalance problem in South Asia. Thank you for your patience hearing. Bye.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Redwanuddin Ohi, ID 09. Today I will be presenting a dual strategy to strengthen container resilience across South Asian maritime logistics. South Asia currently faces persistent container shortages, rising logistic costs, and a heavy dependence on foreign, especially Chinese container manufacturing. These challenges disrupt trade, reduce competitiveness, and weaken regional supply chains. In this presentation, I will outline a two-pronged solution designed to address both operational and structural causes of this problem. The recommended solution. Our recommended solution is a dual integrated approach. First, the Regional Container Exchange Platform, or RCEP. This will serve as a shared digital ecosystem that connects major South Asian ports. It provides real-time visibility of container movements, helping ports, carriers, and shippers coordinate more effectively. By reducing information gaps, we minimize idle container time and unnecessary repositioning. Secondly, expanding domestic container manufacturing. This strategy aims to localize the production of ISO standard containers. Given that over 80% of the world's containers currently come from China, developing local capacity helps reduce vulnerability to foreign disruptions. Through targeted incentives and mandatory sourcing requirements, countries can build a strong and more self-reliant logistic ecosystem. Strategic justification and evidence. Let's start with the coordination problem. South Asian ports work independently with very little information sharing. UNCTAD shows that digital platforms can reduce empty container movements by 10 to 20% by improving transparency and enabling better repositioning decisions. So the RCEP moves the region from a fragmented system to an integrated and information-rich environment. Now the structural dependence issue. Because most ISO containers are imported, any global disruptions like Red Sea crisis or pandemic era factory shutdowns immediately affect South Asian exporters. India's Maritime Vision 2030 already shows the benefits of domestic production, shorter lead times, improved availability and better resilience. This evidence clearly supports a dual strategy that addresses operational inefficiencies and long-term vulnerabilities at the same time. Expected outcomes and benefits. If implemented successfully, this dual strategy will deliver operational, economic, and environmental benefits. Operationally, we expect a 10 to 20% reduction in empty repositioning. This means more efficient use of assets, more stable freight rates, and faster container turnaround times. Economically, logistic costs could be reduced by 5 to 8%. In addition, promoting local container manufacturing will generate industrial growth, particularly in steel, fabrication, and transport equipment, and create skilled jobs in this region. Environmentally, fewer empty movements and shorter transport routes will result in lower carbon emissions. This supports global sustainability targets and aligns with IMO decarbonization goals. Ultimately, all these benefits enhance the global competitiveness of South Asian exports. Risk management and mitigation. Like any major intervention, this strategy comes with risk, but it can be effectively mitigated. First, data sharing reluctance. Countries may hesitate to share container information. Establishing regional governance, potentially under BIMSTEC, along with secure standardized data protocols will help build trust. Second, high digital investment costs. A multi-port digital platform can be expensive. A phased rollout starting with high volume ports combined with financial support from ADB or World Bank can reduce this burden. Third, concerns about meeting ISO standards. New manufacturing units may initially struggle with quality control. Partnerships with internationally certified manufacturers and strict ISO standards will ensure quality. Fourth, resistance from global carriers. Shipping lines may be hesitate to adopt a new platform. Offering incentives such as discounted port charges and priority berthing can improve participation and platform success. Lastly, measuring success, KPIs. Finally, to ensure the success of this strategy, we must continuously monitor performance using KPIs. On the logistics side, key matrices include average container dwell time at ports, overall turnaround time from port to hinterland, and back, reduction in empty repositioning rates. These indicators show whether operational efficiency is improving. On adoption and growth side, we track digital utilization rate or how many stakeholders actively use the RCEP, the share of domestically manufactured containers in the regional fleet. These KPIs help measure both technological transformation and industrial progress. Thank you for your time.